we're back. Welcome once again to the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast. This is episode number 45, if you're counting, and I am your humble host, John Dayton. Joining me on this sultry spring evening, Anthony Kuzabucki.
Hey there.
You can hear the traffic whistling by through the open window. Shortly, folks, shortly, we're going to be coming to you from the campfire.
Yeah, it's not quite nice enough. Well, it probably is nice enough, but I'm
too tired
not
dry enough yet either.
I've got enough wallpaper that I've peeled off in the last week to probably keep something going with chemical fire for a while.
It'd be a real short podcast. We're out of wallpaper. But anyway, we hate to do this to you because we're doing so well, having carefully thought out podcasts recently, but neither of us can think very well right now, so we're just going to kind of patch it together. We do have a few interesting things to bring you. We're going to start with compressors. Got a couple of things. We decided a while back, like back during the winter, we were going to try and each of us think of like a new piece of gear that was coming onto the market that we wanted to mention that we thought was noteworthy, because there's new stuff coming out all the time, and some of it's...
We could talk about that big Scarlett that just came out.
Oh, yeah.
We get into that.
There's a big Scarlett coming out. What is it, 20?
It's an 18i20, so 18 ins and 20 outs and MIDI and SPDIF and ADAT and all that good stuff, and it's all USB, so it's not, if you don't have FireWire, it's still usable for that.
And did they discontinue the Sapphire USB?
I don't think Sapphire was ever USB.
No, there is one. I looked it up the other day. I spotted it when I was looking for something else on Amazon. I clicked on it and said not available at this time. Not sure when it'll be back in stock. But that was the one I was really torn because I have a Mac for work. So a Sapphire would have worked out great, and I thought it had some maybe a little bit nicer features and nicer pre's, and I think it definitely comes with a nicer plug-in package.
Yeah.
Not that the Scarlett. I mean, we've been coming to you live on the Scarlett here for months now. I've been really happy with that. Been really happy with everything else I recorded with it.
Sounds a hell of a lot better than the ART pre's for sure.
Yeah.
You can just hear the difference in noise floor.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Well, what do you want for a $50 interface? But
no, it's great.
I feel like it sounds a little better than my Motu even, which probably if you divided it out like price per pre.
That was one of the nice things about the Digi stuff. Like the Digi 02 and the Digi 03 came with, I think at least 4. Damn cat.
That's the podcast cat crashing through.
The Digi 02s and the Digi 03s had 4 real Focusrite pre's in them, and those were, they're turning up on eBay now for like $250 for son of a bitch cat.
Ew.
We finally opened up all the windows today, and he is just going nuts.
Spring fever.
He doesn't have any nuts, but you wouldn't be able to tell right now.
It is that time of year. But anyway.
Yeah. What? Who wants?
Anyway, while Anth was going to dive into something else, but anyway,
good. I got an approval text.
We're big fans of anything that comes from Focusrite. Rupert Neve, not directly, but Rupert's guys
He's got some juju in there too.
Yeah. So there's good stuff. Anything that says Focusrite on it is good stuff. Even the cheap stuff is good stuff. If you're going to buy cheap stuff, get Focusrite. Don't even mess around.
It's not even worth it. How much was... I've got the 8i6, and that was, $250.
So, yeah, under $3.
Yeah, and I just tracked, like you just listened to it, came out sounding great with
it did.
2 mics, just the 2 pre's that were in there, and I cheated a little bit and threw a gain boost on, I stuck a 57 underneath and made some adapter cables and ran a 57 as my under mic into one of the line inputs on the back of it and just boosted the crap out of it. And it came out sounding really good. And then on top of that, the 9-foot Grand that we've got at the church has a MIDI box, and the whole thing's MIDI. So I took a track out of that, ran that, ran my headphones. Actually, I need to screw around a little bit, but ran the person that was tracking her headphones as well out of it. And despite the fact that I was at like something like 56 channels, and my MacBook was starting to fight back a little bit, everything came out sounding really great. It's a fantastic, for $250 you can run it into another bigger interface and just use the pre's as, your 1 and 2 into SPDIF 1 and 2 or whatever. It sounds great. So for, less than $300 plus that plug-in package, that's a pretty nice way to get you going.
Yep. Well, honestly, I tell people now, like, if you need multiple mic pre's, there's a couple ways to go. There's a couple companies that'll make they make a USB box with 4. I think Akai actually makes one. I haven't heard any actual reviews of them. I mean, the stuff on the website selling them say pretty good stuff. But honestly, if you need 4 mic inputs, if you need 8, there's a lot of options. Focusrite's making a new Octo Pre. The old Octo Pre's are still out there. Motu makes a box. Actually, Motu makes a 4-input box. So there's the Motu, there's the Akai, but you're looking at some serious money for those. The Akai is, I think, $500-$600. The Motu, maybe not quite that much, but you're looking at $1,000 to get one of those. A pair of Focusrite Scarlett 2i2s, less than $250. 4 mic pre's, boom, done.
Good mic pre's too. Like they're genuine Focusrite mic pre's. So there's your different levels of Focusrite mic pre's, but at the same time, you're still getting something that sounds a heck of a lot better. I guess if you like the sound, that guy that was in the producer that we were working with for some of your stuff wasn't a huge fan of Focusrite pre's, but I'm not sure why. He didn't really specify.
Just a weird preference, I guess. I mean, he's worked with some pretty nice stuff, so he might be feeling about these little generic things like the way we feel about Mackie mixers. But
right, I guess, yeah. But I mean, there's still, if they're good enough for Dave Rath to go on tour with him and sub out his Midas pre's for Focusrite pre's.
He turned his nose up at a Midas too, so it's anyway. So, anyway, started off on compressors before we got into some classier stuff. The old Alesis, what was it, 3630 was the actual, I could never remember. There's some 3s and 6s. I owned a dozen of them at one point.
Yeah, we used to have, I found all the manuals for them one day. I was like, what'd you do with them? We're like, yeah, we didn't really like them. We just got rid of them. We got a bunch of Behringer multi-coms instead. Like, oh, great. Man. Well, I guess you can't get that much worse.
They were always my preference. Even though they're really about the same, like if you divide it out, like the Alesis 3630 is roughly equivalent to like a Behringer, not Autocom, the classier one, the Composer.
I don't know
the Composer.
Yeah,
and that had a gate on it and a couple other bells and whistles. So for your garden variety $99 2-channel comp. It was always my go-to. One, because it didn't say Behringer and it was blackface. So, I just
you didn't hit it in the right angle of the sunlight and get blinded.
Yeah, and the other thing I liked is the Behringer stuff all has detented knobs on it, and the Alesis one is a little smoother, so you can kind of just put I like to use it without looking at it. So I get one finger on top of the ratio knob and the other finger on top of the threshold knob, and just by wiggling my fingers back and forth, I'll get it set the way I want it while I'm looking at my performers or, glancing back and forth between them and the console, and then, later on look over and see where I put stuff. But anyway, they came out just recently with a follow-up, the 3632, which I don't know what all it's really got. It's about the same price point, I think. It may be a little bit more, but what they did is...
They changed the silk screen. That's the 2 is.
Yeah.
It's the second version of silk screen.
Well, there's more stuff on there. Like they... Let me see. There was always a limiter on there, I think, or maybe there wasn't. I'm trying to remember. I used to own a dozen of these things.
You never used it if it was.
I did never use the limiter. No. And the compressor looks like it's probably about the same. I don't know. Maybe they updated an op amp or two. But where they really came through was on the gate. I didn't use the gates a whole ton, but it looks like they've given you a little bit more options. Oh, they also improved the readouts on it. Like they gave you an indicator light for whether the gain's on and off, and then a 3-stage light for threshold for the compressor, so you can see if it's below, at, or above. Which, when you have a single box that's doing your gating or your expanding and your compressing, it's always nice to be able to tell which one of those is making the reduction meter light up. So, if you're gating a drum and also compressing it on a kick drum,
which one?
You can't tell. You have to basically turn the gate off and see how much you're compressing, and then turn the gate back on. And it's a bummer after a while. So I don't have a price. I haven't looked it up, but if I ever need cheap compressors, those are the ones I get, just because they don't say Behringer on them. Not that they necessarily sound that much better, but nobody ever complained. Guest engineers never turned their nose up at them. They just want it to work. Whereas if you have Behringer stuff in your rack, you're almost surely going to catch flack from somebody.
There was always something goofy about some of the Behringer stuff. Like, I'm trying to think what the multicom that I've got has input ratio
Oh, that
output
one's so goofy. Like
with a hard and soft knee. Like you hit the button, you're like, the button doesn't do anything other than turn on an LED. That's it. That button doesn't
you can't actually hear any difference in how it compresses.
Sounds bad.
That one is so
bad.
goofy, and it's that is just the shining example of what Behringer does. Like, oh, you want a quad comp gate limiter coffee maker? Cool. Like, let's see what the industry standard is for that. We'll add 6 buttons and 4 lights to each channel, name them cryptically, and sell it for $200 less than anybody else. So it's fine. I mean, like I have one I bought one years ago to have in my rack of monitor amps. So I bought it basically because I needed 4 limiters, and I actually use the gates on it at sometimes. I would set the gates real low just so on a perfectly quiet stage outside, wind noise wouldn't, come screaming in between acts. But yeah, I mean, that thing's another piece of junk. And like, what does the contour button do? Like what is
on the Behringer?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that model. Mine's not that nice.
That's the quad. Has a contour button on it and another button with a name on it that doesn't mean anything to me.
It's not the multicom. Is that the composer?
The autocom is the
one I don't have.
Super cheapy one. The composer is the one that's about equal to the Alesis 3630, and then the multicom was the 4-banger.
Right. That's one I've got. The one that I have has just 3 knobs and then a harder soft knee, which really the input knob's the only thing that does anything.
Like DBX kind of knew their market. Like they made a quad compressor and or compressor limiter, and they left the gates out. Like instead of trying to cram in gates and this and that, and it has the Behringer has a button to select whether you're compressing or expanding, but it doesn't say what the difference. Like it doesn't explain very well which, like if the light's on, is it a gate, or if it's off, is it a gate, and what's the ratio when it's being a gate, and what's the ratio when it's just being an expander.
The DBX just has more series of LEDs for you to like I think what is it, the 166?
Yeah.
The 166 has the gate and the expander and the comp on it.
Or the 1066. That one?
Sure. I don't know.
The 1046 is the quad comp. The quad comp limiter, and the 1046 is the one that I really like. Like the 1046 is the classy version of all these 2-channel ones that we've been talking about. Like super nice gate expander with a real ratio knob that you can.
No, the 1046 is just comps. Just 4 comps, because that's what I've got. I think the 1066 is the fancier one. The 1046 is just compressors that you can stereo couple. Yeah, I know. I'm good with the numbers, but
I know.
1046 is the 1046 I've got, and I think it's
the 1046 is the quad, and the 66 is do I have that backwards?
What the hell?
Whatever. Are you watching baseball, or are you fed up with me?
No, I watched this game twice already. It's fine.
Did the Yankees still win?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, every time. Every time.
I don't care much for baseball, but I love hating the Yankees.
I'm a little bit pissed that, I was watching the Yankees for a real long time, and then I missed watching the Phillies. And they are not a local team, and they are not on big networks. So, the only time I get to watch them is when they're playing the Mets. And that's it. They're in Cleveland today. I didn't get to see him.
Steve goes to a Phillies game 5-6 times a year.
I don't know if I want to be in a car with Steve for that long.
Sorry, Steve. We pull no punches here on Smart to Noise. All right.
Really what it is I don't think I could be away from work for that long, or my pregnant wife before something awful happens.
You may want to be away from your pregnant wife for that long. Third trimester's a son of a bitch, I tell you what. Anyway, so while we're on the topic of compressors, you want to tell us what you learned about the...
Yeah, how I felt like a 4-year-old for a while. So I've got one of my buddies let me borrow. There's a place online called Hairball Audio, and if you're into building your own gear, it's an awesome place to go. They have kits that you can make, and not just cheapo kits, but actual, fairly close to the original kits for 1176s. They've got, I think, all the revisions A through F of the 1176 blackface, and you can do a silverface blue stripe or a blackface blue stripe. So you go through and figure out what revision.
A black-eyed Susie or a blue...
Lazy Susan Silverface and a...
That's what we got to come up with our own mods now. With a twist.
The VU meter twitches every once in a while, and the lazy-eyed Susan Silverface.
Wait, the lazy Susan Silverface, or the lazy silver Susan-eyed?
The lazy-eyed silver Susan face. we haven't even been drinking. This is great. Oh, wow. Anyways, we got an 1176, and whatever. You got the plugins. That's fine. And we're both big proponents of not using presets so much, even though in the last week it's turned out to be my pop magic miracle, unfortunately. But so I was driving this 1176, and it's got an input and output knob, your ratio buttons, your meter buttons, so it's +4, +8 gain reduction or off. Then an attack and release knob, and then this one's neat where you can just turn it to off on the attack, so you're just getting 1176 flavor, but you're not doing any compression. So if you don't want it, you still get the warmth from it, that nice little, tapey hiss. But I've always, just kind of driven it, have somebody sing through a chorus or a verse and then dial it in, get to where I'm liking it and leave it. Oh, the knobs on the 1176 for the attack and release are numbered, I think 1 through 7, 1 through 7. So 1, 3, 5, 7, going clockwise. What I didn't realize until I was looking at some of the presets, be like, oh, that seems like it's 100% backwards from where it should be. Not realizing that the knobs are backwards. Where 1, where you think attack would be the fastest on 1, is actually the slowest. And the same with the release function. So you have to have everything turned for the fastest attack and release all the way to 7. And for the slowest, all the way to 1. Which after, when I started thinking about it, started confusing me, and I would be like, no, it's got to be this way. And it turns out, after all that messing around, it's still better to just drive it by ear.
Well, that's what you were doing in the first place.
Right, yeah, and that's why I wasn't thinking about it. That's great. The knobs are labeled, and that was helpful, but they're kind of labeled to the point where it wasn't helpful once I figured out what was going on with it. And I've had the thing for 2.5 months, and never thought to, maybe I should get a manual and read it. It's a compressor. It's not that difficult. It's not making me sandwiches and such. I don't have to tell it where to put the mustard on and everything.
That's a good analogy.
Not making me sandwiches. I tell the damn thing where to put the ketchup and mustard. I just drive it and it works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Just using your ears. That was when using compressors really came together for me. It was when I stopped looking at them, when I just learned where the knobs were and put my hand out and made it do stuff based on what I was seeing and hearing the band do. And it's weird because this is one of those things we already knew, and then we heard a very good explanation of it that very nicely quantified the process that we had been doing all along. So this comes up a lot in the forums. What are good compression settings? And I think it's the guys are looking for what preset numbers to use. But I think a few of them, in the live sound forums in particular, just how on earth do you go about this? I understand how it works, but my settings aren't sounding as good as everybody else's. So
right.
here's the method that we use for going about this. Basically, just make it so get a signal going. Have a guy start singing. Let's say it's a singer. You want it to be subtle, but until your ear gets really trained, until you know what you really want to get out of something, and you get really good and fast at analyzing an input. And
I just got a nervous twitch when it starts compressing too much. My head kind of turns like a dog.
So he's got that going for him, which is nice. But so it doesn't matter where any of the settings are to begin with. Just turn that threshold down and turn the ratio way up until it's working, until you can hear it working, see it working. You got lots of lights coming on. And once it's really working hard, then set your attack first and then your release. So just without getting too in-depth to it, play with those two things until you get it sounding right. And then, did I get the bad mic cable again? No, I didn't. Nope, yeah, I did. Bugger. All right, I'm just going to...
Let's just switch that before.
As soon as I'm done saying this, we'll pause it, and I'm going to cut the end right off of this cable, and it's going to plague me no more. So, set the attack, and, it all depends what input it's on, what style of music is, what the venue's like, or what the studio's like, but use that time when the compressor's just squeezing the guts out of it, because then you can very clearly hear what the difference is between a fast attack and a slow attack. And then once you have the start of the work going, then work on your release. If you're working on a particular song, get that release time so it's working with the beat. If you're working live, get the release working. If it's drums or vocals, it's going to be different, but get it working so that it's it doesn't sound too messed up.
Right. It doesn't. It's not noticeable. That's the idea with, well, at least for what we like to do and the sound that we like to get. There are some people where you want it squashy and flapping all over the place. I guess I don't understand that, but that makes money for someone somewhere. But the more subtle it is, like what I've started doing is doing it somewhat like the release time, somewhat to the tempo of the song, but also to, if you can start gauging, especially for vocals with the 1176, what I've noticed is if you can start gauging the release time off of when they start losing their power, losing their breath, that's when I've started, that's where I'll hit the release time in. So
it feels really natural as to what they're doing.
Right, yeah. So it'll tame the peaks a little bit, and then if I have to go back in and reroute something and drive a little more compression into it to fatten it up or push it out, I will. But for the most part, I think I start getting a little bit shaky when I see it knocking off more than 5 dB or 7. But every once in a while, you get somebody that sound checks 5 feet away from the mic and then gets right up on it and wails into it, and it happens.
Sure does. Every day of the week.
Yeah.
So anyway, once you got your attack and your release set, then you start to dial in the ratio, and this is one of those things that just with experience you're going to learn, all right, I've got a belter, so I'm going to go for, a high ratio and a high threshold, or it's something that I just want it to compress a little bit all the time, so you go low ratio, low threshold, and those are things you can read up on that, or you just learn it by trial and error, and then you're out of knobs. Your compressor's set up, and it doesn't take too much practice of doing things like that to where you could go, you listen to what you're hearing, your brain immediately, almost without thinking, decides what you want to do to it. Your hand reaches over, puts the knobs in the right spot, and off you go.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to hit pause and swap this cable out. Yep. And nearly instantly, we are back. Got the culprit mic cable correctly identified, shoved back in the bag where it won't harm anybody anymore.
Until next week.
When I forget to do anything to it, and the knot I tied in it falls out, and I plug it back in again. But we try to keep it interesting. So,
I've got some Gorilla Glue over there if you want to just pack the ends in.
The connectors are still good. I'll cut the ends off in a minute. That way I'll have to fix it. So anyway, before we move on, we had it in mind to talk about effects here in the second half. I go in big kicks. I try to listen to a lot of different stuff and generally fail because I don't like much. I like New York speed metal from the mid '80s. That's my thing. It's just that is the stuff, that's the speed my molecules resonate at. Those tone molecules are simpatico with the molecules that make up myself.
About a week ago, I went into the dentist where Brandon's wife is. She's actually, I think she just graduated this weekend or this week. And she looked at me. She's like, I have no one to blame for this but you. I can't get church music out of my head
because her husband's played at my place 3 times in the last 2 months.
She's like, it's super catchy. She's like, I don't really like it, but I can't get it out of my head. I was like, you know what you need to do? You need to listen to speed metal. That's what, just a good hour of speed metal, and you'll be okay.
It's the instant cure. It doesn't even take that much for me.
Yeah, but I think she likes pop music to a certain degree, so I think the hooks just kind of hook deeper.
Yeah,
for lack of better terms. But
show tunes are what get me when I work on a musical. It takes just a solid week of blasting Anthrax and Slayer and all that good stuff to clear all the stuff's so clever is the thing. Just the rhymes are so clever.
I can't. My brain doesn't get that involved. I've never let it get that involved. I'm so used to awful theater that I can't like good stuff now. I'm so tainted. Yeah, even good stuff that we'll watch DVDs of, actual clips and everything. But I can't get into it.
It's easier when they're paying you.
Yeah, that's fair.
I can get real into it for $25 an hour.
My Jewish roots go right along with that.
Anyway, I go in kicks. Like I'll hunt around and just kind of see what the lay of the land is. I don't listen to outright pop music, but if everybody's going crazy about Mumford and Sons, I'll check that out. And this and that. And then I've almost always got some sort of classic rock that I'm rediscovering. Because where I grew up, it was exactly in the middle of two, they're not big cities, but like the two cities in Western New York. So we got, double TV and radio channels for everywhere. So I had two classic rock radio stations, one click away from each other on the dial. So all these great old bands, like The Who, you name it. Like one station tended to lean more towards like Pink Floyd and the Stones, and the other one tended to lean more towards Southern rock. So it was
and both of them are in New York State, so it doesn't really make sense. But yeah,
but just whatever you were feeling like, you just click the dial, one click either way, and that was what you got. But what it meant was, these were the radio stations that if you weren't listening to pop music, that was all there was. Otherwise, so like there were a couple of talk stations. There was NPR or whatever, 4 or 5 pop stations, and then these 2 classic rock stations. So like every gas station, garage, your buddy's house, your buddy's dad. It was weird, like doing shows with like even the goth kids would be singing along with Sweet Home Alabama when we were kids. Like we were ages 15 through 19 playing in a band. We'd play all these cover tunes. We're playing Sweet Home Alabama, and I look over and there's all these children of the corn in their black trench coats with safety pins and spikes all over them, and eyes blacked out, and black lipstick and black hair and black nail polish, singing right along with Sweet Home Alabama.
There's none more black.
Then their dads would show up to pick them up from these coffee house gigs, looking like Father Time or like doormat beard down to their belly button.
Got it.
Yeah. I read you.
What was with the safety pins? I never understood that. Like, how many garments of clothing could you need to fix that you've got to have an entire a magazine?
I think it was to keep the skinny ones from getting attacked, because if anybody jumped on them, half of those 4,000...
They went into ballistic mode and just all pinned out.
Safety pins, they pop open, so they figure if somebody jumped on them, they'd get... Anyway, so whatever. I, a couple of years ago, I went through a big Queen phase, rediscovered Queen, listened to a bunch of albums, watched all the live shows on YouTube, and, then it was The Who after that, because it's just all of this fantastic music. I mean, you look at these bands like Queen, biggest band in the world at one point. The Who, biggest band in the world at one point. Still on tour to this day. The Stones, still on tour to this day. Aerosmith. And this is all the stuff it got played so much, we got totally sick of it. So as time goes by and as the fancy catches me, I'll kind of just rediscover it completely, like dive back in, be playing B-sides and looking for deep cuts and trying to find all the obscure live tracks. So the latest one has been ZZ Top, and they just sound good always, like no matter what they're doing, like old school boogie,
have
blues,
you listened to that new stuff where
techno?
Billy's voice is so dirty.
He's getting old.
Oh my god! But
it's getting better and better.
I think Rick Rubin did the last album with him. He's just like, he probably pulled out a gun and threw some empty beer bottles at him or whatever. And Billy just like, I want to sound like that when I grow up.
I know it.
Oh my god! I quit smoking, but man, if there weren't health consequences to get that voice, I would do that.
So anyway, I said all that to say this. I wound up watching, if you're bored sometime, get on, Netflix has got it, and you can find sections of it on YouTube. They did a live DVD called Live from Texas in about 2008, so it's not that old. The production on it is pretty good, and I wound up watching the thing, and I just... I work with big bands all the time where I got 14 people in a choir on stage,
right,
and, bar bands, just with all this stuff, and everybody's bringing backing tracks these days. And here I am, there's all this music coming off the stage, and it's just 3 dudes.
Yep. And it's not tracked, and you can hear when they mess up.
Yep.
Because that happened, like, on the one Crossroads DVD. You're like, Billy has no idea where anything's going, so it's just a big giant drum fill until he lands where he's supposed to be. And then that all comes back in, like, we've been playing together for like 40 years.
So they're like psychically in tune with each other, and yet they sometimes still screw up.
Yeah,
Which
whatever.
that's fun. Like that's you're kind of seeing behind the scenes or seeing things fall apart a little bit. And the other thing that came out of it was just that three guys could be that tight and that together and make that much music with just three dudes. But then the other thing is that Dusty's the bass player, by the way, the one with the pointy beard. He always overplays. Like hearing his direct signal come through hot on these live recordings, some of it's just overplays like there's no tomorrow. And I have a couple bass players that do that, so that made me, but hearing him on the records, I'm sure he doesn't not overplay when he's in the studio. He's still overplaying in there, but they doctor it up and make it sound.
It's probably like a normal
good
band project. Billy probably plays all the bass.
They hire a dude. One of the dudes from the Scatolites comes in and plays all Dusty's parts. This wizened old black man with his braid dreadlocked into a tree.
Yep.
But anyway, sorry, Dusty. But didn't mean no disrespect. But yeah, and then the latest thing, like here's another thing, a few musicians out there trying to figure out how to make a connection. Like, okay, so here's this Texas blues band that improbably becomes wildly successful, then switches over to playing like new wave club style blues infused music on MTV in the 80s. And now they're on their their third generation of fans, and they got to do something. So what do? Well, they worked with the same producer as this rapper down in the South that was regionally famous about 10 years ago. They steal one of his tunes, and it's amazing. Like it's about selling crack inside an empty.
What's that? The Two More Lighters.
It's called "I Gots to Get Paid." The original song was called 25 Lighters. So
okay, yeah, 25 lighters on my dresser.
I got 25 lighters on my dresser. Yes, sir. Yeah. I gots to get paid. I'm like, wow, they are sounding gravelly as heck and senile as a mofo. Like, what is he even talking about? So I finally looked it up, and it's like, yeah, okay, they used to empty out a Bic lighter, pop the top off, drop some rocks in there, and then, your brother needs a fix. He comes, hey, man, you got a lighter? Yeah, right. So the cops don't see you handing drugs back and forth. You just, you're giving your buddy a lighter. So now here's ZZ Top, elder statesman of Southern rock, of Texas boogie, singing a song about
selling crack.
And it pounds. If it wasn't overcompressed, I would just.
Oh yeah.
I could listen to that song. It just grows and grows on me. I've been pounding. I'd listen to it 5 times a day.
After a while, your throat starts closing up with it
because you can't not sing along with it. Got 25 lighters for my 25 folks.
You're trying to get down there so bad, and it's just like you bottom out. I don't know where all that gravel.
Is he singing high? Is he singing low? Like what's he? He's almost like he's singing two voices at once, and his timing. Like here's another lesson. Like you've heard people talk about like trying to sing with Willie Nelson. Like he's not a vocalist. He's what do they call him? An expressionist, or
singer songwriter.
Yeah. He's a stylist, is what they say. He's a style. He's just got his like.
My guitar player is a stylist too. He works for Redken. He's real good too.
You mean Sven?
No, Skip.
Guy that plays the guitar for you.
Skip's actually married. He's a regional.
Woman?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's the other guitar player in my band.
But anyway,
Skip doesn't
so
listen,
Willie Nelson.
okay.
If you ever have to sing with, you can't sing along with a Willie Nelson record.
You have to feel the breeze that's going with it.
To hear other famous artists who have sung along, they're like, you just sing it straight, and Willie does his thing, and it pretty much comes out all right, mostly. Yep. But you just got, who was it? Johnny Cash had a real. If you try and sing Johnny Cash straight, it doesn't come out like it did on the record.
There's like on the Sound City thing, which might not be too late to start again. I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah. All right. But like when they're going, he recorded I think the last album while he was alive, American something, like the last album that he did, I think Hurt On and
that Soundgarden tune. And,
he did Rusty Cage and all that stuff. Like that got me back into Soundgarden. His version of Rusty Cage was like, oh man, I'd not forgotten, but like, okay, it's been like 15 years since, but wait. Let's go back and listen to Louder Than Love a couple more times, but yeah, like that. And there you listen to it, like he's not singing anywhere close to where he should be singing, but damn, it sounds good.
Seriously, click track? I don't think so.
Oh, click
like
what?
You don't pitch correct,
what, son.
You don't pitch correct Frank Sinatra. You don't put Johnny Cash on a click. But just watching ZZ Top and their timing, the way they're feeling, like they're
for white guys got some groove.
they really just get in the pocket. Like but it sounds so regular. Like it just the compared to the stuff they played in the 80s, like Give Me All Your Lovin', and where it's it's literally dance club drums with boogie over the top of it. Texas slide boogie.
Legs was sweet. That's what that's how I got into rock and roll. I came home, I grew up in church. I work at a church now, and I came home one day and I was listening to whatever, Christian artist that my mom had a cassette tape for. My dad's like, "What the hell? What are you listening to?" I was like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." He's like, no. Come here. We went upstairs and flicked on the turntable and the Panasonic thrusters. He's like, "We're going to get you some rock and roll to fix that." And put on Eliminator and made me sit in front of Panasonic thrusters like 3 feet away from, just pointed in at my head. It's like, "You're going to listen to this. And when it stops, I'm going to flip it over. You're going to listen to the rest of it." Like, "Okay, Dad."
What a good dad you had.
Had no idea what I was in for, but
I'm going to send him a card on Father's Day this year.
couldn't think about anything other than TV dinners and blue sauce on chicken for such a long time.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, anyway, said all that to say it's worth looking into some deep cuts. It's worth looking into old production because they just had nothing. They made those records on 24-track tape at most and just made them huge and made them just grab you. And I mean, I can't hear 2 seconds of a ZZ Top song, and there's just not a prayer. Like, it's just going to be in my head for weeks.
Oh yeah, yep. So that was that was the thing when we were thinking about doing. Not that we stopped thinking about doing, but life and busyness and things. But me and Brandon were going to do a ZZ Top tribute band for do like 2 shows and tape it just because, and all the stuff that you think Yeah, I can play it in my living room on a guitar when nobody else is around. But like playing it out with guys, like everybody knows the songs. It's just not all quite there.
You got to get it just right.
Otherwise, it doesn't I don't want to wreck that groove. I don't want to be that douche at the bar that people are throwing beer bottles at because you're not playing the groove right.
Oh, I found a new bar douche that I want to throw beer bottles at, and that's guys that play a lot of Crash Cymbal on Stevie Ray Vaughan covers.
I don't think that guy played Crash Cymbals.
There's one in every song. It goes at the end, mother.
It's just it's 16ths on the ride the whole time.
If that, man. There's no metal in Stevie Ray Vaughan. I listened to Pride and Joy, and my head went back to all the times I've heard that. And just there's not 2 crash cymbals in every measure. There just isn't. And there aren't crash cymbals at the turnarounds, and there just aren't any. There's one at the end.
There's an organ swell, is what there is. That's what's there.
All right. So what else we were gonna kind of get into effects before I got off on the boogie.
How much time do we have?
We got a third of the show left.
Oh, okay. So I feel like the last couple times we tried to get into non-dynamic effects, we've been like, all right, yeah, so this is what it does, and
there's
reverb.
Cool, you use it. Thank you. Good night. But I had one technique that I've been trying out a little bit. I picked it up from the hip hop guys. It's always cool. It doesn't fit everything, but when you want a really upfront, in-your-face vocal, obviously you compress a little bit, and that pushes it to the front. But if you just have a big, flattened out, fat, wide vocal, it just doesn't occupy the space. Like you have this, it's weird because you have this big, powerful vocal, but in real life, if somebody was like right in your face, rapping or singing at you, you would still hear it bouncing off the walls of the room, no matter what size room you're in. So reverb's pretty important, even if you're not using it as like a big, sweepy spatial effect. Using a small room with a really short, early ref, but using a lot of it.
Right.
So
sorry, yeah. Reverb, use it.
Thank you. Good night.
Ha! We're back there.
You working on a contract there on the iPhone?
The contract to keep my job. Yeah.
Oh.
No, it turns out the track that I did turned out really great, and they want to use it for the final cut of an album. It's nice.
Real nice.
Yeah. It's like it's nice when you get to a place with a mix and you give it to somebody. You're like, all right, well, let me know, if this is the right direction. Like, oh, it's great, just press it. Like, but But no, I've got like 2 more days of. What do you mean? It sounds great. Like
that's the experience I've been having doing some. I'm starting to catch some online mastering work. So like, guys will be like, yeah, we'll get the Dropbox set up and I'll get you the files and stuff. So like, while I'm waiting, I'll go on SoundCloud and just download an MP3 and start working on that just to kind of familiarize with myself with it. So like, I'll send them that. Like, all right, this is kind of what I was thinking. And they're like, oh, that's great. That's great. How do I pay? Like, no, but I haven't started yet.
This is the pre-master. This one costs $50. The postmaster costs another $200.
I don't charge that much. By the way, if you need mixed master work, we're pretty busy,
son.
But we're available. Our rates are reasonable, and we are easy to work with.
Yeah, we don't sleep, so whenever
Yeah. I sleep a little bit. I oversleep is what I do.
You
I stay
oversleep
up all
on my
night and
couch.
a little bit.
Everywhere else you wake up fine, but there's something. Oh,
it's a pretty good couch. It makes you feel guilty for leaving. Like, no, stay, baby.
Every once in a while, I wake up in the morning and John's making it eggs, and
yeah, well.
I'll call you, baby. I promise. I'll see you next Saturday. You bet you.
You know it. I love you more. No, I love you more. It's a horrible couch to sit on, but it's a great couch to sleep on.
You don't even sink into it. You just kind of curl up, and you can't help it because it's.
But that's what it's doing. Is when you're sitting on it vertically, it's making you feel guilty for not taking a nap.
Yeah, it's so narrow. For me,
but I'm narrow. That's why we're such a good match. Yeah. That's why I make her breakfast before I go. We were talking about effects. It might just be time to call it. We were pretty exhausted. I know we're supposed to be doing a show.
Well, we got a topic for next week now. Effects. We can research them and find out what they are and what they do.
Yeah,
and then
we just turn some stuff on usually, and magic happens, and then the album's done. That's how that works.
As long as you what the key is relabeling the preset with your name on it. It doesn't.
Okay, you got me. You got me.
That's all you did. It used to be Carl verb, and you just went, nope, John verb.
I do that on physical effects processes. No, I made those presets from scratch.
That's what I did with all of Joe's stuff. I had the pleasure of having a couple of session files from Joe, and we're like, wow, these are really good settings. Save as Joe kick drum, Joe snare drum, Joe overheads. Hey, look, it sounds like a Kendo record. Sweet.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the plug here. But all right, so I'm gonna do the usual bit of plugging. Guys, if you're not on Reddit yet, get on there. If you love the forums, if you're on Gear Sluts and ProSound Web and Dave Rat's forum and any other stuff that's out there, Reddit is just jumping right now. The audio forums, all of them.
I finally got an account.
Yep.
Good Lord.
So you got the ones that we really like are r/live sound and r/audio engineering. Those are just super. No trolls in there. Hot topics coming up all the time. And if you're a little nervous about getting on a forum and starting your own post, both forums have a weekly post called "There Are No Stupid Questions." Yep. So if you got something you want to know about, the pros are there to answer. There will be no making fun of. You will get straightened out. And there's also sorry, my brain just tried to go two directions at once. There's just a ton of music-related forums, in addition to, fans of Soundgarden and fans of different groups and types of music. There's a couple, Rate My Audio is one of them, where if you got a song you worked on, you can put it up and professionals will critique it for you.
Oh, Rate My
Audio.
I thought that was a P in there. I was like, wow, that's,
Well, we're from Western New York. We don't pronounce our final consonants.
Consonant? What's that? Consonant.
Did you hear that? Consonant.
You being all pious from the half an hour down the road.
No, I do it too. They do it even worse in Rochester, and they have a twang, which is from Rochester, New York is the other. But if you're from Rochester, it's Rochester. Marge from Rochester. Dialects fascinate me, boy. If you track vocals, it's so fun for me anyway to read up about all the different pronunciations and like different catchphrases from different parts of the country. As much as pop music tries to make everything as vanilla as possible, right. I love texture and difference. So, I would love to hear like a rapper from Boston and a country singer from Atlanta or whatever, just in the different ways that they talk.
Like that new, what is it? The Brad Paisley and LL Cool J song.
I was afraid you were going to say T-Pain and Taylor Swift. because that happened.
Did it?
Yeah. It was awful.
Damn, I wonder who uses more auto-tune.
It's more obvious on Taylor Swift stuff, I think. Right? I just jammed his gears.
They both sound awful. I don't know. At least he uses it in his effect.
Let me wrap up on plugging Reddit. So anyway, there are a number of forums on there that are worth checking out, and you can even find a forum that just lists all of the other music-related forums. The two that we're trying to get going and trying to get some following behind is one's called r/audio memes, all those stupid little pictures of
just raccoons and
silly sound guy jokes in pictorial format.
Yep.
Those, don't post those in the real audio forums.
People get mad.
If there's a good one, people will let it go, but sometimes, like, some of them don't allow it, period.
Yeah.
Meme shows up, doesn't matter if it's a funny haha or not, it's out of there. So somebody was thoughtful and made a forum where you can just put those up, and that's finally starting to take off. There's some significantly funny stuff in there. And the other one that is not taking off, that I want it to take off, so if you guys are listening, I plugged it on the blog the other day. I'm plugging it now. You need to get into r/post audio on there, which is different from audio post. Audio post has to do with film and TV post-production work. Post audio is post your audio, and that's where you can find people offering their services, their mix master services, their songwriting and arranging services, their musical services, their tracking, whatever you need. You should be able to find it on there. Right now, all you find is like me and one other guy willing to mix or master your tracks, and a couple of guys who are willing to swap like website design for tracking. So the idea was, if you're broke and you have a skill and you need somebody else's skill, you meet up on there and, you design T-shirts for some guy and he does your mixing and mastering. Or what I'm thinking is just going to be, it's a way to find guys that do this work that don't necessarily have a whole studio set up and have advertising and a website and a secretary and all that stuff. Like, if you need some work done, you can find some good engineers in there who are doing good work, who aren't charging an arm and a leg. So that will be, I predict, the spot to find that kind of stuff. Once you get in there and either offer up your project for people to work on or offer your services. And here's the nice thing, is once this thing gets populated a little bit, you put something up, you're immediately going to get 2 or 3 people who are willing to work on it. You can sift through, you can go back and look at, you will be able to, go back and look at previous posts that have been up there, see how the discussions went surrounding it, and, see how things shook out, maybe kind of suss out and figure out which one's the better choice, or just have everybody that wants to work on one section or one track of your project and get them all back for auditions, and the best one wins. That's it. Oh. So anyway, cell phone again. So I'm going to wrap up my rambling and plugging, but I'm totally enamored with Reddit right now. The audio communities that are going on right there are the hot spot, and if you are not on there, you are missing out. So, to wrap up, thanks again for tuning in. Sorry it was such a ramble, but I think we managed to get a few useful tidbits out there. Now we know what we're going to talk about next week. So if you're listening, you have a chance to write in. If you have any ideas about effects or have any good tricks or have any questions you want to answer, get in touch with us. Very shortly, the blog will have its own email address. I was going to do that today, and I forgot. So what I did wind up doing was deleting my Swedish pseudonym Google account so that I could get a new account. But anyway,
just close it down.
Yeah, thanks.
Shut it down.
We're getting punchy. All right, so if you are a listener and not yet a reader, please do be checking out the blog. You can find us at smart2noise.blogspot.com. We are currently, by the time this goes to air, it'll be over, but we just did Mic Week then, let us say, where we covered just some of the garden variety mics that you're likely to find in live sound applications. Next time, which will probably be after a week of regular posts, Anthony's going to do a week's worth of studio mic posts with a little help from Ika and Brandon.
Good to know.
Yeah. Thought I'd spring that on you.
Yep.
Since you didn't help with live mics at all yet.
I didn't know about live mics. I found out today, 3 days in.
Things are a little discombobulated. But yeah, that it has been going on and will be going on. We found out that the themed weeks work out really well for us. It helps us focus and get some good writing out, and people seem to like that, so we're doing it. And on that somewhat sour note, we're going out with a hiccup.
Everything sucks. Close the show.
We're going out with a hiccup and a fart. This has been the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast. I might actually flag that and go back for it, as much as I don't do edits. Nice lady. Hi, leaving. Anyway, good night. We'll see you next week if you're lucky.
Good night.